Mario Kart! Hey!
This video is everything you need to know to win in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, from the controls and how to drive, all the way to optimize shortcuts and item strategy. There will be time codes in the description, but I recommend watching every portion as you will most likely learn something new. I usually upload online races where I try to explain what I'm doing, but there just isn't enough time to go into full detail. This guide will explain literally everything that I do to help me win races, and by the end, you'll find yourself winning some too. Let's get started. If you just started playing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, you may have been picking whatever looks good or maximizing the speed stat. Let's clear up which parts you should be picking. This topic goes deep, but we will keep it simple. For beginners, the best combo is any baby character, plus the Bitty Buggy or Mr. Scooty, roller tires, and Cloud Glider or Paper Glider. Some of these are randomly unlocked by collecting coins. If you haven't unlocked them yet, you can go with Baby Mario, Streetle, Roller, and Parachute, or any combo that you like the look of and has similar stats. You can press the plus or minus button to see your stats. What we're going for here is high acceleration, handling, and mini turbo. Acceleration is how quickly you can get back to full speed after stopping, which is very important after getting hit by an item or driving off the track. Handling helps you turn better, which is crucial until you have all the track layouts memorized. You may have noticed your speed stat is really low, but the hidden mini turbo stat is how you will go fast and win. And surprisingly, the mini turbo stat is more important than the speed stat for trying to go fast. I'll explain this more soon and even more in depth later on in this guide because this goes deep, but I will fully explain what all these stats mean and how important each one is. For now, all you have to know is that this is a very solid combo and the best one if you are just starting. Or you can try out the most popular combo in the game at the time of making this video, which is Yoshi, Teddy Buggy, Roller, and Paper Glider. This combo has more speed and less handling, which is going to be tougher to control for beginners. For now, I'm going to advise against going for a high-speed combo. This is because not only is it probably worse, you will have a much harder time improving at this game. The higher speed combos have lower mini turbo, and mini turbo is one of the most important mechanics to master in this game. You can try to improve with a fast combo, but I would not recommend it. And lastly, look out for this icon under a bike. Most bikes have this other icon, but if you see this one, you have chosen an inward drifting bike. These 5 bikes have inward drift, and they operate differently from most vehicles which have outward drift. I have already made a video covering the differences between them, linked in the description. In this guide, we will be covering outward drift because it is what I recommend you choose. But everything that I say from now on will be true for both drifting styles unless I specify otherwise. While you have the stat screen open, you'll want to toggle smart steering off, motion controls off, and auto accelerate off. Smart steering is an option that lets the game turn for you to avoid going off the track. This sounds great, but it can prevent you from taking shortcuts. It's sometimes very unpredictable, and it slows you down when it activates. This is for total noobs, and sometimes Mario Kart pros. But our goal today is to learn how to drive properly, so of course we will not need smart steering. Motion controls lets you tilt your controller left and right to turn, but it's far easier and more precise to use your controller's left stick. Auto accelerate just holds down the A button for you, which is kind of convenient, I guess, but you can't ever stop or slow down if you have to. So just turn all of these off, and I will go into more detail later on in the guide because they are important to touch on for high-level play. The first track in this game, Mario Kart Stadium, is a great track to learn all the mechanics. We'll start off very simple with the controls. Hold the A button to go forward and the B button to slow down or reverse. At the start of a race, as the numbers go down, you can get what's called a startup boost by holding A at the correct timing. You want to start holding A the moment the number 2 has stopped moving. If done correctly, this will give you the maximum length startup boost. If you start holding A too late, you will get a shorter startup boost, which is not too bad. But if you start holding A too early, you will get a burnout. This is really bad, so if you think you're going to burn out, let go of A for a split second and just keep holding A again after that. Then you'll probably get a decent startup boost. Keep holding the A button as you drive. Use the left stick to move left and right, and you do not need to hold forward to go forward. You'll want to stay on the main road, as going into the off-road, in this case grass, will slow you down. But if you have a mushroom as your item, you can activate it to move quickly, including through the grass, in order to take shortcuts. Press the L or ZL button to activate your item. If you don't have an item, you will do a cute little horn honk. The X button is to look backwards. To use this effectively, you should find a way to comfortably hold A with your right thumb while still being able to press X with your right thumb. Drifting is the most important driving mechanic in this game. You can get a sharper turn by holding the direction you want to go and then hold the R or ZR button. This begins a drift. If you drift for long enough, sparks will build up under your tires. By releasing the R button, you will get a small speed boost, called a mini turbo. If you hold the drift longer, you will go from blue sparks to orange to purple, and each color change means you will get a longer lasting mini turbo. I refer to these by color, but they are also called mini turbo, super mini turbo, and ultra mini turbo. Drifting and mini turbos are the most important driving mechanics in this game, so make sure you are drifting around every single turn to get used to how this controls. The R button is also used to do a trick at certain times. When going off a ramp, press the R button near the peak of the ramp to do a trick. This gives you a speed boost once you land. You should be trying to trick off of pretty much every single thing that makes you leave the ground, because most of the time you will be allowed to trick. Instead of using the R button to trick, you can also shake your controller, even if you have motion controls turned off. This can help you get tricks on regions of a track where it is harder to time the R press. You can also trick off of blue glider panels. Once you are in a glider, you fly above the track instead of driving on the ground. You can still move left and right, but you can also move up and down. You have to hold down to go up and hold up to go down. If this feels weird to you, think about it like you're leaning back or leaning forward. For beginners, you'll spend most of your race only using A to accelerate, R to drift and trick, and L to use items. For now, you can mostly ignore B to brake and X to look backwards, but they are both very important at higher levels, which of course we will cover later in this guide. You have now earned your Mario Kart driver's license. You can now go to Grand Prix to race against the computers. If you have a decent handle on this game, go for 150cc. This is the standard game mode, with 100cc being slower and 50cc being even slower. Mirror mode flips all the tracks left and right, so you'll forget where to go, and 200cc is so ridiculously fast that you'll constantly need to hit the brakes. It can be loads of fun, but not when you're first starting. Once you're on the track, try to figure out how to take turns tightly. The path you take through the track is called a racing line, and having a good line versus a bad line makes a huge difference. And keep in mind that sometimes you'll want to sacrifice a good line in order to charge a higher level mini turbo. This kind of decision making is what makes Mario Kart's drifting mechanic so interesting. One of the first things you'll notice is coins on the track. Collecting these will help you unlock a random vehicle part, but in a race, they also help you go faster. You have a coin count, which can go up to 10, and you lose 3 coins if you get hit. Having 10 coins gives you about a 6% speed increase, or about 0.6% per coin. This may sound very small, but it does make a big difference. Over a 2-minute race, that's about 7 seconds faster with 10 coins, or almost 1 second faster for each coin you have. But that doesn't mean you should grab every coin, because you also lose time going out of your way for them. As a general rule, grab coins that are close to the optimal path until you have 10. A shortcut is another path through the track that is faster than the normal path. Most of the time, you'll need a mushroom or some sort of speed item to take the shortcut, because you have to go over an off-road surface that slows you down, like grass. But some shortcuts can be done without a mushroom. This is called a shroomless shortcut, or a NISC, which stands for no item shortcut. If you're taking a mushroom shortcut, usually you just mushroom over the off-road, but some shortcuts require multiple mushrooms and need to be done differently if you only have 1 mushroom. And that either means taking a smaller version of the shortcut, or activating the mushroom after entering the off-road and hopping out at the end, because just a mushroom boost is not long enough. Most of the time, you'll want to drift through a shortcut since they usually involve at least a slight turn, and the mushroom lets you stay at top speed during your drift for a free mini turbo at the end. Then there are the shroomless shortcuts, which are usually more difficult than the mushroom shortcuts. Most shroomless shortcuts involve a very precise movement, either to spend as little time as possible being slowed down by the off-road, or to leave the off-road in a mini turbo boost to quickly reaccelerate, or to hop over the off-road entirely. These boosts will not save as much time, but can be done even if you're in first place without a mushroom to extend your lead. We'll cover shroomless shortcut mechanics later on, but one thing you'll definitely want to know right now is if you ever get stuck in the off-road, make sure to spam R to keep hopping. This makes you go a bit faster because you spend as little time as possible with your tires touching the off-road. If you want to see all the important shortcuts on a particular track, I'm currently working on a short video series that will cover all of them, and I'm always taking requests for more. Just search, for example, Donut Plane shortcuts in the YouTube search bar and I may have a video on it. And I cannot stress this enough, but if there's anything you take away from this guide, please let it be this. The number one thing that will make the biggest difference between you being good or bad at Mario Kart is memorizing the track layouts. There are a lot of tracks, but each track is distinct and not that complicated. So if you just play this game regularly for a few months, I guarantee you will remember how every track goes. But if you have not memorized the tracks, your main focus should be playing on all the tracks as much as you can. This way you know exactly when to start your drift on each turn, you'll be able to take shortcuts confidently to make a comeback, and you can focus on items, other racers, and strategy, since you're no longer trying to figure out where to go. I consider myself a pretty good player, but every time a new DLC course pass comes out and I play it online, I feel like I turn into a completely average player. That is, until I start to feel confident on every portion of the track. Knowing the tracks well is crucial. This is why I don't recommend playing online right away, because the players there are much better than the bots, and losing does not feel good. Once you're pretty consistent at winning in Grand Prix mode, then you'll know you're ready for online play. Now let's talk about items. Item boxes are laid around the track in groups called item sets, and most tracks will have 3 item sets per lap. Items are extremely important when racing, so you should try to grab the double item box as much as possible, since it gives you 2 items at once. You cannot swap your items, you have to use them in the order that you got them. After touching an item box, it takes a while before you actually get your item, but you can press L shortly after getting the box and your item shows up right away. Also, your item is determined the moment you touch the item box, so don't worry about going too fast and potentially getting a worse item just because you're closer to first place. Once you grab the box, your item has been set. The further back you are, the better items you can get. This is partially based on how far you are from first place and partially based on what placement you are in. So it is possible for second place to get triple mushrooms, 6th place to get a bullet bill, as long as first place has a big enough lead. But if your placement is not low enough, you will not consistently get the best items. Here's how every item works and some tips and strategy for how you generally want to use each item. Even if you think you know how the items work, I recommend watching this section as you'll probably learn some useful details about each item. Some items can be thrown forwards or backwards. The default is forward, but if you hold down on the stick, you will throw it backwards. Some items can be trailed behind you if you hold L. This is very important to defend against red shells as they attack you from behind. The banana peel can be placed on the track and it stays on the track until something hits it. To use it aggressively, you can either throw it forward with pinpoint accuracy, or you can lay it backwards to trap a commonly taken path. But typically, you'll want to trail your banana peel to defend against red shells. Keep in mind that when throwing forward, the distance depends on how fast you're going. If you're going slowly, you will not throw very far. The green shell can be thrown in a straight line and it can bounce off of walls, so it's most effective in a confined space. Just make sure you don't hit yourself with it, because that is all too common, at least for me. You can go for 6 snipes, but typically you'll want to use the green shell to protect against red shells. The red shell is so annoying. When you throw it forward, it targets the next racer. Usually you'll defend against red shells by trailing an item, but it can break if you quickly swerve around something as it is about to hit you. You can also throw the red shell backwards, but then it just moves in a straight line and breaks as soon as it hits something. You can also use a red shell to protect against other red shells. The ba-bomb, or bomb, makes a giant explosion when it is hit or after a few seconds of being out. Sometimes it can walk around before exploding, so pay attention to that when going around the bomb. Throwing the bomb forward can be risky because you could run into it yourself, so you'll usually want to throw it backwards. The best time to do this is on a narrow path, as nobody will be able to dodge it. Sometimes even on a wide path, no one will be able to dodge it. Thanks, Nintendo. Keep in mind that when throwing forward, the distance depends on how fast you're going. If you're going slowly, it will not fly very far and you may bomb yourself. You can trail the bomb to dodge a red shell, but this can be risky. On 150cc, you need to be going at top speed or you will hit yourself with the bomb. So the safer option is to use your rear view camera and drop the bomb at the last second. But on 200cc, you can safely trail the bomb. The super horn, also known as the music box, attacks the space around you, hitting all racers and deleting all items on the track for a few seconds. This does not include items held by other racers, but does include trail items and revolving items. The best use for the super horn is to break a blue shell. There's a very small chance of getting this in first place, so a common strategy is to keep cycling for new items in first until you get the super horn. And then a red shell shows up and you can't use this on the blue shell anyway. The blue shell not only targets first place and delivers a bomb explosion, it drives down the track and hits anyone in its way. And this thing is huge. It's this big in your hand and this big on the track. Did you know that? And sometimes it takes a shortcut. Someone at Nintendo really thought this made sense. Your general strategy for avoiding a blue shell if you're not in first is to get out of the middle of the road. If you notice the blue shell on the minimap and you don't have an item to avoid the blue shell in first, you can actually back out of first and let someone else get hit. The blue shell does not lock onto a target until it is very close by, but you have to notice the blue shell early. If you notice too late, you may have just slowed down for no reason. And if someone else has finished the race already, the blue shell will target the next highest placement, even if that placement is 11th place. I'm still salty about that. The boomerang is a very powerful attack item. You can use it 3 times and it goes through items and racers, meaning that you can hit multiple people and even break their trail item. To defend against red shells, you'll want to look backwards and time the throw. Each time you use the boomerang, it leaves your item slot and then returns in the next available slot. If you have 2 items before the boomerang returns, you will lose the boomerang unless you can get rid of an item before the boomerang returns. And this is extremely rare, but since the shock only deletes items in your item slot, you can actually get your boomerang back after being hit by the shock. The fire flower can be used 10 times, and it has a time limit that begins when you use your first throw. The time and the remaining throws are both represented by the circle, but as long as you still have time, it will let you throw the fire flower 10 times. The fireballs can also bounce on walls. If this sounds overpowered, it is. The piranha plant gives you periodic bursts of speed until the timer runs out. You can also press or hold the item button to keep activating it. During each boost, the piranha plant also bites in the space in front of it, which can include an item or another racer. If someone else has a piranha plant, just remember to stay behind them as the plant can only bite forward. You definitely don't want to hit them, end up in front of them, and have them bite you. I can't imagine being that stupid. The best item in the game is the lightning, or as more serious players call it, the shock. The shock hits every racer except the user, making them spin out and turn small. When small, you drive much slower and you can get squished by a regular sized racer, making you even slower. Each racer stays small for a different amount of time depending on their placement. First place stays small for the longest. If you get shocked in a glider, you will still go through the spin out animation and turn small, but you will not lose a bunch of speed like you would if you were on the ground. There are 2 ways to dodge the shock. Either have an invincibility item active, or be in the respawn animation after falling off. But unless you have a teammate communicating this to you, there's no way you can use falling off as a reliable shock dodge method. And if you are in the invincibility phase after getting hit, you will dodge the initial impact of the shock, but you will still turn small. As the person using the shock, there is a lot of strategy that goes into this, but the basic idea is you want to look at the minimap to see who's in a star or a bullet. If someone is in a boo, you cannot see them on the minimap, so don't worry about that. You want to use the shock at a time when fewer people are in a star or bullet so that they don't dodge it. The speed items all rely on your speed stat. I mentioned earlier how the mini turbo stat is a more important stat than speed when trying to go fast, but that's only for when you're not using items. With speed items, the speed that they give always depends on your speed stat and how many coins you have, and this includes the bullet bill. The mushroom gives you a short burst of speed, but the speed boost you get is actually quite weak and can rarely help you make a significant comeback. The best use of a mushroom is to take shortcuts. Off-road sections of the track make you drive slow unless you're using a speed item. Some shortcuts require 1 mushroom, some need 2, and some don't need a mushroom at all. This is where track knowledge is important, as using mushrooms can either be next to useless or take you from last place to first place depending on how you use it. You also want to save your mushroom if you have no other item, even if you won't take a shortcut. This is because if you get hit, you can use your mushroom to instantly get back to full speed. The golden mushroom is just a mushroom that you can use for as much as you want for 7.5 seconds after the first use. This can be used to take multiple shortcuts and make a huge comeback. In my opinion, the star is the 3rd best item in the game. Using it will boost your speed, acceleration, and handling. It makes you invincible, and you can hit other players. It's basically a slightly slower golden mushroom, but better in every other way. On top of that, unlike a golden mushroom, using a star makes it disappear from your item slot, allowing you to get more items. When using a star, make sure to listen to the music as it always ends on a particular note. The bullet bill is the second best item in the game. You're invincible, you're a giant hitbox, and you go faster than mushroom speed, and it drives for you. Make sure to also steer the bullet bill left and right, as you do have some control. You'll want it to take sharper turns, hit other racers, and pick up coins. If you are in or close to a shortcut when you activate the bullet bill, it will often take the shortcut for you, but this does not work on every single shortcut. The bullet stops after a while, depending on if it has met certain requirements. If you're in first place, the bullet will not last that long. The bullet will stop if it has passed too many racers. This depends on how many racers there are, but in a 12-player race, the bullet will try to pass 5 people. If the bullet has not stopped for one of the reasons above, it will stop after 8 seconds. 8 seconds is the amount of time you can usually expect a bullet to go for. However, there are sections of some tracks, particularly either sections with curves or airtime, where the bullet is programmed not to drop you off. This is called a bullet extension zone. The two most famous examples are using the bullet in the first shortcut on Cheeseland or the waterfall shortcut on Yoshi Circuit. If the bullet is currently in a bullet extension zone, then it only follows one rule: stop after 12 seconds. Even if you've passed 5 people, even if you're in first place, the bullet does not care until it has reached 12 seconds. To learn more about bullet extension zones, I'll link a video in the description once I've made it. But for now, just look around for some resources. The coin is really simple, and as you can probably guess, it sucks. Using it increases your coin counter by 2, which is a solid alternative to grabbing coins on the track. The game will never give you 2 coin items at once, so if you only have 1 coin item and you cannot guarantee a double item box on the next set, you should always hold it until you get your next item. Then the next item is guaranteed to be something more useful than a coin. The Boo, or Ghost, makes you invincible and invisible for 10 seconds. It steals an item from a random racer in front of you from their active item slot. If nobody has an item in front of you, you will get a mushroom. The Boo is quite good for dodging items and for dodging the shock, because the person using the shock cannot see that you're invincible on the minimap. Statistically, first place will be stolen from most often because the Boo always has a chance to steal from first place. In order to defend against the Boo, you can try to hold your defense item behind a coin. That way the Boo steals the coin instead. There's your intro to item management strategy, and we'll dive way deeper later on. The Crazy 8 gives you 8 different items: a coin, banana, green shell, red shell, ba-bomb, mushroom, blooper, and star. By pressing the item button, you will use whichever item is in front of you. This item sounds great, but pretty much the only important item here is the star. And if someone touches the star, they will steal your star. So it's way safer to just spam all the items if you're near other racers. The blooper targets all the racers in front of you and puts ink on their screen. This doesn't just make it harder to see, but also lowers your traction stat, making you slip as if you were driving on dirt or ice terrain. If you have ink on you, you can use any speed item or a boost pad to get rid of it, or go from air to water to get rid of it. The blooper is a very bad item to get, but it is also very rare. And finally, we have triple items. Triple banana, green shell, and red shell will auto-activate once they are in your active item slot, and they will revolve around you. This can protect you against other items and make it easy to hit other racers. But unlike the single item, you cannot trail these. So if you don't have all 3, it's harder to defend against red shells. And having all 3 does not guarantee you are safe, so just keep that in mind. Triple mushrooms also revolve around you and give other racers a small speed boost when they touch it. Note that this is not stealing your mushroom, you're just giving them a small speed boost. You still get to keep your mushrooms. Before we get into the strategy section, I want to first talk about what playing online is like, because this affects the strategy you'll want to use. When you race online, you'll usually want to pick worldwide. The game will try to put you with other racers around the same skill level. You might think you want to pick regional to reduce lag between everyone's consoles, but because there is a smaller group of people to play with, you may find yourself in rooms with very lopsided skill level. So I would recommend worldwide. Even if you beat the computer players every time, don't expect to win your first few online races, as the difference in skill level can be pretty big. Remember, everyone you're racing against can also beat the computers every time. This is where you'll start to practice not being in first place and how to make comebacks. It's both frustrating and exhilarating as you have this learning experience. The racing mechanics are mostly the same online with a few exceptions. The item distribution is slightly different from playing against the computer players. For example, you can no longer get triple bananas in first place. If you don't move for too long, about 10 to 15 seconds, you will get disconnected. Even if you're moving, the game will disconnect you for not making progress. I'm not sure how the game checks for this, but I did manage to find a strategy that, so far, has worked 100% of the time in making sure I don't get disconnected. I used this to pull off a win after waiting 30 seconds, embarrassing the entire room. Okay, most players don't care. You can still open the pause menu online, but obviously the game will not pause. Imagine that. But you can still change your toggle options, which is an important technique that we'll talk about later in the guide. And finally, the most important difference between online and offline is how attack items work. If you throw an item at somebody and it hits, but then they magically speed up again, this is because of lag. What happened is they didn't get hit on their own screen, so you have to wait a few seconds before knowing if your attack actually landed. This can lead to some pretty hilarious situations, but generally speaking, the game can be pretty accurate at reading other people's positions, so you should still try to snipe people as if there is no lag, but just wait a few seconds before you celebrate. Now here's something that is infuriating about online play. Unthrown attack items like trail items work differently for some stupid reason. If you suddenly got hit by absolutely nothing, what happened is someone was trailing an item and you ran into the item on their screen. There is no way you can control where you are on someone else's screen because of the lag. And this is made worse if one of you has an abysmal internet connection or if you live across the world from each other. When someone in front of you is trailing an item, you really have to respect it and stay far away. But if someone is right behind you, you can whip out your trail item and guarantee a hit on them. Oh, and this applies to revolving items as well. Good luck not running into my triple green shells while I am kicking my internet router. Alright, now that we've gone over everything you need to understand what's happening in a race, let's go over some strategy to help you make better decisions. Yes, there's luck involved, and yes, sometimes you can find the most egregious examples of that luck coming into play, but most of the time this does not happen. Unlike what a lot of people think, Mario Kart is not a random game of luck. If you have better strategy than your opponents, you can often win consistently against them, even if they have better driving. There are 3 general placements you can be in a race. We'll call this the front, the middle, and the back. Which place you are in plays a big role on what strategy you should use. If you are in first place, this is called front running, and your main goal is to stay in first place. Coins are important, and you want to get to 10 coins eventually, but don't go so far out of the way that you lose first place because of it. Plus, constantly chaining your coin item should be more than enough to hit 10 coins, because each coin item increases your coin counter by 2. I once had an extremely long winning streak on Waluigi Stadium where I would always front run and reach 10 coins, but I was seriously bad at collecting coins on this track. I'd collect about 1 to 2 coins per lap, but I'd still hit 10 because of all the coin items I got, and as a result, I could go faster than everybody else. If all you have is a coin, don't use it until you get your next item box unless you can guarantee a double item box. This is because the coin item sucks, but you cannot get 2 coin items at once, so your next item will definitely be able to defend against a red shell. You want to always have a defense item for a red shell, and if you keep chaining items, you'll probably get 2 defenses at some point, which is great, or a super horn to dodge a blue shell, which is also great. If you get the super horn, try to keep it in your second slot for as long as you can so that the boo cannot steal it. In first place, always play defensively. The only exception to this is if you think someone nearby has a good chance of hitting you and you want to hit them first so they cannot hit you. In this scenario, try to hit them by trailing so you can at least keep your defense item if you fail to hit them. Dropping a bomb also works reliably, but generally speaking, you shouldn't use a super horn as it is too valuable. You might think being in first place is a bad idea because you can get hit by the blue shell, but it's very common for first place to build a very large lead called a breakaway. This is not because the person in first is better than everyone else, this is because the person in first cannot get hit by trail items and is usually too far away to get hit by all the most deadly attack items. Being in first place is an advantage. Keep in mind that you can't always win even if you are in first place the whole race because you cannot get mushrooms to take shortcuts and you cannot defend against too many attacks at once. Plus, it can feel especially bad when you hold first place the entire race only to lose it on lap 3, but often people are just strategizing to make the comeback only on lap 3, so you can never feel too safe being in first place, but it's generally still the best spot to be. If you are at the front of the pack but not in first place, you still want to play somewhat defensively, especially if there are strong attack items near you. If you're comfortable with it, try to use your rear view camera a lot because people can snipe you with green shells if you're not looking. Stay away from trail items even if it means slowing down or taking a suboptimal line. The half second you save by taking a faster line is not worth the 5 seconds you could lose if you get hit. And chain your attack items as much as you can. Chaining your items means to use your items right before an item set. This is much better than using your item right away. For example, if you use a red shell right away, you can no longer use it as defense if you happen to need it for defense. But if you didn't need it all the way until the next item set, you can safely throw it and get a new defense item. If you get a mushroom, you'll want to hold this until you can use it strategically. Some tracks have a big shortcut that can take you into first place, and waiting to use your mushroom is often the best play. However, some tracks don't have a good mushroom spot. In this case, you want to keep it to recover from being hit. If you still have the mushroom by the next item set, just chain it and hope for a good defense item. If I get triple green shells in a top position on Waluigi Pinball, which has no shortcuts, I'm holding these triple green shells for as long as I can. It also makes it really difficult for anyone to pass me. If you're in the middle of the pack, you're pretty much just praying not to get hit. All of the attack items are most common here, and sometimes defensive play just isn't enough. If you have revolving shells, a star, or a boo, I'd say you have a pretty good chance of making it out alive. If you have 10 coins, you'll be going fast enough that you may just escape the pack. But if you don't like your chances, don't risk getting hit. It's probably better in that case to slow down and hang back where it's safer, get to 10 coins, or get a good speed item and make a comeback by taking shortcuts. This strategy is called bagging, short for sandbagging, or intentionally racing poorly for a period of time. If the track has lots of shortcuts or really big shortcuts, then it is called a bagging track. We'll talk more about that later, but basically on these tracks, staying at the back can actually improve your chances in a race. The middle of the pack is just too dangerous and unpredictable. If you are in the back of the pack, intentionally or unintentionally, your first goal is to get to 10 coins, even if this means taking bad racing lines. This is because the extra speed will help you make the comeback when you need to, and you always have speed items to make up for your bad lines. In this position, you generally want to chain your mushrooms and stars, even if it means using them all at once at a terrible time. This allows you to get as many items as possible, increasing the chances of getting a bullet bill or shock, as well as hopefully dodging the shock if you don't get it yourself. Any of these scenarios is a great opportunity to try and make a comeback. Winning races from this position depends a lot on which track you are playing and your knowledge of the track's shortcuts, bullet bill extension zones, and item box placements. On most tracks, you do not want to get too far behind or you'll never be able to come back. But then there are some tracks like Cheeseland. Cheeseland has a maximum sized bullet extension zone and 6 major shortcuts, including 2 right at the end of the track that you can take after doing the bullet extension. Because of this, I can intentionally stay half a lap behind on lap 1, and I still can often win after that. In fact, my chance of winning is actually better than the person who is front running. Dry Desert, Mario Circuit 3, Yoshi Circuit, and Riverside Park are just a few more examples of the best bagging tracks in the game where you'd want to intentionally stay back. Now, if this strategy sounds extremely degenerate, I don't blame you. It's not the best game design, but what are you gonna do? Stop playing Mario Kart? Yeah, you can do that, but I want to play, and I'm not going to intentionally lose by front running on Cheeseland. But before you hate bagging with a passion, I recommend trying it out a few times. It's actually a lot more difficult than it looks to get first place doing this against human opponents, and it introduces a greater element of strategy and a higher skill ceiling to this game. I mean, I'd rather Nintendo nerf bagging so it's not that powerful, but at least it requires more decision making and knowledge than front running. Let's be real, front running is pretty easy for any decent player. But that doesn't mean this game is broken. Most tracks are still front running tracks. I've done my own comparison of bagging versus front running, and while you should question my front running versus bagging skill, I'm probably better at front running. It is just a fact that more tracks in this game are better for front running than bagging. This game can also be very luck-based at times, so don't think about it too much if you lose a few races. You cannot control the result on any given race, but you can control your average placement. Just keep trying to improve your average results, and if your VR is going up, then you're doing great. If it's not, then stop playing, go to bed, and try again when the Japanese players are sleeping. Once you have a solid grasp of the game, it's time to try 200cc. This mode is so much faster than 150cc that it is actually insane. But before you get started, here's what you need to know to survive 200cc. The most important mechanic in 200 is brake drifting. This is where you use the B button to slow down while drifting, allowing you to take tighter turns. In order to do this, you'll want to find a comfortable position where your right thumb is on the A button, but you can still press the B button with your right thumb at the same time. Once you're in a drift, just hold B to slow down. Keep in mind that if you slow down too much, the game will not let you drift anymore. So the best way to brake drift is to tap B repeatedly while still holding A. This takes a while to get used to, but with some practice it will feel very natural. There are some turns where you will have to brake drift because of how sharp the turn is, but since brake drifting does make you go slower, you'll want to avoid brake drifting whenever possible. The best way to take turns on 200cc is to start your drift a lot earlier than you usually would, and this makes the turns a lot easier. Sometimes this means drifting off a boost ramp to make the next turn better. If you trick instead, you will have to brake drift, and this makes tricking off some ramps slower. There are also times where you will want to hold one long drift over 2 turns where you would normally do 2 drifts in 150cc. Not only is this easier, but this lets you charge a bigger mini turbo at the end of it. Sometimes in 200cc you'll be going too fast. Brake drifting helps, but you can't brake drift while in a speed boost, such as a mini turbo. In a situation like this, you can cancel your mini turbo. Keep holding R to drift, but release A and press A again. This will get rid of your mini turbo, and for beginners, this is how I recommend taking the first 2 turns on Rainbow Road. Another difference between 150cc and 200cc is that on 200cc, items often matter less. Since you're going so fast and the races are so quick, that gives less time for impactful items like the shock and blue shell to show up. And if there's no blue shell, front running is better. And if there's no shock dodging items are worse, and bagging is worse. Also, the items are not sped up to match the speed of 200cc, meaning that attack items are actually worse since they're often too slow to even reach the next player. Plus, there is a bigger skill gap between a good driver and a bad driver on 200cc since you have to be much more precise to drive well. So, being able to gain an unbeatable breakaway on 200cc is much more common, and making a comeback on 200cc is a lot harder. What makes 200cc especially fun, besides the difficulty, is some of the crazy shortcuts that are possible thanks to the increased speed. A lot of 150cc mushroom shortcuts can be done shroomless on 200cc, and 200cc also introduces some shortcuts that are not even possible on 150cc. And if there's any 200cc shortcut everyone should learn, I recommend learning the Big Blue Ultra shortcut. Come on, how can you not smile when you see this? That's the end of the Beginner to Advanced guide. Next up is the Advanced to Pro guide. In the next guide, I will explain a lot more advanced techniques like super bouncing, mini turbo tricks, soft drifting, glider vectoring, a lot more about item strategy, a lot more about shortcut techniques, especially shroomless shortcut techniques, and a lot of specific and situational high-level tricks that, once put all together, will make you a much better player that can win even against some of the best players in the world. I will be looking through the comments for any questions that you guys have, and I may answer it in the next video, which will be linked in the description after I make it. Or if I'm procrastinating, see you in an online race.